Welcome back, fight fans. I go by the name of Barak.
And I'm Barak, the boxing bully.
And this is the DAZN Boxing Show, home for all things boxing. So much boxing in Manchester this weekend. Real influencer boxing, not involving Jake Paul. We're going to get into all of that right now on the opening bell. Barak, first thing I want to touch on is the reports of 1.3 million pay-per-view sales for KSI versus Tommy Fury, and the co-main event, obviously, Logan Paul versus Dillon Danis. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, Barak, I do have to touch on the very entertaining fights in Dean the Great versus Waleed, and also Salt Papi versus our Brooklyn native, Slim. So, look, when you talk about skill-wise and the most entertaining professional-looking boxing match was probably the Dean the Great one, which is kind of similar to the first one, but in reverse. That set the tone for me, Barak, watching this card. It was entertaining, and it gave me real boxing vibes. And when I say real, look, this is real boxing. These people are sanctioned to fight real professional fights with no headgear. So this is not a game. I know people like to frame it a certain way because these guys haven't boxed their whole lives and their influences, but this was real boxing, what we had on Saturday night.
100%. It's boxing no matter what. Like I always say, if you pass the exam, the physical, then you can become a pro boxer. But obviously we separated it and we call it influencer boxing. It's Misfits boxing. It's the Zone X series. I don't mind that. It's funny when guys like Dean the Great want to fight Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, then it becomes comical, because you just had a tough fight. You almost lost that fight. Great fight, by the way, but you almost lost it. You gassed out the last round. You said your arm was hurt. Your shoulder popped out of the socket. Regardless of the fact, Gervonta will knock your arms off your body. So
would Ryan Garcia, and so would Ryan Garcia.
Exactly. Stop it. That's the part that's strange to me. But when it comes to just fighting, it doesn't matter the level of boxing. It is still boxing, whether you think they're good or not. It's still boxing. And Dean the Great is actually somebody that takes the sport seriously and looks fairly good inside the ring.
Yeah, no question about it. And, in terms of somebody looking good that doesn't come from a boxing background, I would say Salt Papi as well. He made a lot of defensive mistakes. But starting that fight with Slim, he was dominating the fight. The first 2 rounds, it was pure domination. He was landing the bigger shots. He was right in front of him. Wasn't moving his head at the time. He was right on the line, which is what caused him to get hit later on in the fight. But that fight was entertaining, and it seemed like Slim was running out of gas. But Salt Papi, in boxing, when you're having success, you can't stand right in front of your fighter, especially a guy that can punch like Slim. Obviously, he's shown power in this Zone X series. So that was his downfall, Barak. No movement, and along with a little bit too much showboating as well.
Showboating, but his showboating looked a little bit different when fighting Slim. He didn't look as relaxed, and he was doing a lot of arm punching and wasn't sitting down in his punches, really trying to get him out of there. And I was just saying to myself, how long can he hit Slim like that, not hurting Slim, and stay away from that right hand, especially being in close quarters like that. And eventually he got caught, and Slim wasn't lying. You're gonna see stars when I hit you, and he did. But shout out to Papi, who, I love Salt Papi. I loved his, I like all of that showmanship. I can't lie. I like all of that. I just think you can't do it against Slim. And he was fighting a little too tentative and not really sitting down on his punches, trying to get Slim out of there.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think he was fighting tentative. I think he was fighting too comfortable, in my opinion, meaning he was standing right in front of him, throwing shots and not moving his head at all, as if nothing was going to come back and fire his way. When you fight tentative, you're generally a little extra defensive.
Yeah, I probably used the wrong word, but
he was too comfortable in the pocket.
Like the third round. You're probably talking like the third round or something like that.
No, I mean, the first round might have been a little measuring going on, but there was still shots landed. He won the first round round, clearly. But after the first round, he was very comfortable right in front of Slim.
I just mean, like, why wasn't he turning his punches over? You know, like all his other fights when he's comfortable and he's joking around and he's just so smooth. He's moving his head. He's fluid, you know. But this time he was in the pocket throwing these fast arm punches and then backing up. And it just didn't look like something that was going to hurt Slim. So, you know, think about this. A lot of times guys with power, when they fight somebody else that's punching hard or they're scared of that shot and trying not to get hit, they don't sit down on their punches.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what,
that's what I meant by that.
I get you. I understand. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind seeing this fight again. I'd like to see a rematch and maybe a more cautious Soul Papi in it. But let's get to the meat and potatoes.
I'd rather see Slim in like KSI or something like that.
I like that fight. I would watch it again for sure. But speaking of KSI, before he came out to fight Tommy Fury, Logan Paul, brother of Jake Paul, and Jake Paul showed up, was in his corner as well, in a fight that got a little personal leading up to the fight with Dillon Danis disrespecting Jake Paul's girlfriend, and he got personal. You know, normally we don't like to see that in a sport. It's good. Trash talking is okay, but when you start bringing in, you know, family or you know, significant others, it crosses the line, in my opinion. So even though Logan said, Barak, going into the fight, I forgive Dillon Danis, so I'm not going to go into this fight emotional. I'm not going to try to kill this guy as soon as the bell rings, because I want to give the people a more tactical fight, which he did. And it was a one-sided fight. I don't think anybody liked Dillon Danis' tactics and what he did and not throwing punches and then trying to put him in a guillotine, Barak. It was all corny and whack, especially with all the trash that he talked. Nobody was entertained with anything that Dillon Danis did.
The messed up part is that people were entertained before the fight with some of the things that Dillon Danis was doing. He was getting a lot of press, a lot of retweets, you know, and just a lot of people talking about the things that he was doing. And I think that was just foolish. I think that there's boxing and combat sports, there's no place for talking about people's family, because what that says to me is that, are you trying to do that because you can't do what's needed of you in the ring?
Most likely, yes.
And that's actually what it showed. It's not all of the time with every fighter, but that's what it showed. Like, freaking Logan Paul really shut Dillon Danis up, rightfully so, right in front of his girl that was mocked, that was disrespected for weeks and weeks. And listen, Dillon Danis lost in every single way in that ring. It was definitely not like when Jake Paul fought Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is the people's champ. So when he put you in a guillotine, okay, it's okay. He can lose and still be respected.
But not only that, Barak, he also was landing some shots. There were moments in that fight with Jake Paul where he tried.
He showed a lot more heart. He was trying a lot more and made it a closer fight. But we're talking about Dillon Danis, who looked horrible at the boxing, was getting beat up, getting every punch landed on him. And then when he tried to shoot for his legs, he couldn't. He gets pushed down. Then when he tries to take him down into a guillotine, he gets dropped and he gets punched in the face while he's down. Yes. So basically he got beat in MMA and boxing in the same fight, because Logan Paul could have jumped on him and ground and pounded him out. You know, so you're lost in every single way. Go off into the sunset. This is not for you. Logan Paul defended his girlfriend, and he's the winner.
You know, and credit to our boy Ariel Helwani calling the fight. Also Todd Grissom and all those guys. And Ariel said, listen, you can't talk all of that and then put this display on and expect that anybody's going to want to see you again. And I'm paraphrasing here because it's true. So I think he got his check. What he wanted, what he wanted to get, and that's what the propaganda and all of the the antics. I think that was the goal here. All right, let's get a lot of people to buy this fight. I'm going to talk my trash, and they execute it. So I'm pretty sure he's getting a nice little hefty check, but I don't think it's going to come back around. All right, now moving to the main event, Barak, KSI and Tommy Fury. This was a very important fight in that space. Even though Jake has kind of sailed off into becoming more respected as a real professional fighter, there's still that measuring stick because he fought Tommy Fury, and KSI had been talking trash about fighting Jake in the past. I don't know if if that's still in the air, but this is where he had a chance to prove to the world, hey, look, I'm better than Jake, I beat Tommy Fury, and that's not what happened. The fight was a little anticlimactic to me, Barak. There was a lot of that Michael Venom Page style from KSI, but there weren't a lot of flush shots landed throughout that entire fight.
No, it wasn't. And funny enough, the shots that I saw that was flush that made the crowd roar, and I'm sure most of the crowd was on KSI's side, were the shots that were landed by KSI on Tommy Fury.
I agree with that.
He was doing that style. I've seen that. I've fought in martial arts tournaments. I've seen that a lot of like Taekwondo practitioners would fight like that with their hands down, jumping on their toes in and out. What it does is it throws your opponent off. It allows you to do a lot of feints on your toes, stay in and out of range, and also be explosive when you do land the right hand, or it would be a kick.
But with more experienced fighters, Barak,
now, I mean, it is what it is, because the first couple of rounds, it did throw Tommy Fury off. Now, in karate, you give a guy a nice sidekick when he's fighting like that. But in boxing, you jab the guy. The reason why you jab the guy is because you're trying to time him coming in. Now, if you throw a jab and you happen to miss and he feints you and he's not there, it doesn't matter, because when he comes in and tries to counter you, you're in position to throw the right hand. So trying to throw the left hook or the right hand first, trying to time him, can get you caught. And that's what was happening in the first couple of rounds.
Not only that, a lot of tension going on throughout that fight, which made it not as entertaining as we would want it to be. Look, KSI, credit to him, though. He was very upset after the fight. It was a close fight.
Credit to him for being upset?
No.
Credit to him for being upset and kicking everything.
No. None of that. No violence, but I can understand why he was upset.
You can be violent on inanimate objects. You can be violent on inanimate objects.
People say, people use the word robbery. I wouldn't say it was a robbery. I would say it was a close fight. I did think that KSI did enough to win that fight, but I can see how some of those rounds, were hard to score. But the clinching made the fight just not entertaining, man. And we all. You can blame both guys to some degree, but you have to blame the referee more than anybody in that fight, because the referee was not breaking those guys up enough.
But at the end of the day, if that's the case, if you want to blame the referee, then KSI definitely lost the fight, because he would have took a point away from KSI.
No, I'm not talking about the point. I'm just talking about the fight, the entire fight, just the way he handled the fighters.
You got to take points away. He took a point away from Tommy, from hitting behind the head. Meanwhile, both fighters are hitting behind the head.
I think Tommy was clinching more than KSI, to be honest with you.
I don't think so. I think KSI was initiating those clinches, because once fighting that kind of style, you shoot your load after you come in with the right hand. And boom,
you have to clinch.
After that, unless you want to fight on the inside. And after that, he would grab with one hand, but still fight on the inside with one hand.
Yeah, I think that both guys aren't really that versed in fighting on the inside, right? They're not comfortable in the pocket like experienced, seasoned guys to throw shots without having to clinch. Guys that have been doing this for a long time in a season.
What are you talking about? Tommy Fury been boxing since he was 1 year old. What are you talking about?
Obviously, it hasn't translated into the ring, because if you're seasoned, you can be in the pocket in the middle of the ring without clinching and fighting. And with both hands, you don't have to be clinching. So that's a lack of experience. But bro, when you talk about KSI, Barak, and I can't say this enough, a few years ago, this guy was playing FIFA and becoming popular on the internet from playing video games. Had never thrown a punch before in his life, wasn't an athlete, and has become an athlete and in shape for these fights, and fighting a professional fighter who just fought Jake Paul. I got to give a lot of credit to KSI, man, for that fight, and really, in my opinion, pulling it off, but didn't get the decision. Let's talk about what's next for both guys. I know Tommy's.
Let me just give him credit as well. I want to give both fighters credit or whatever, but Tommy for winning, but KSI for coming off the couch, like you said, and fighting a professional fighter. I even liked the style that he was doing, because it was throwing Tommy Fury off, but then Tommy Fury figured out it's the jab. By the third round, he was throwing that jab. And that's when you should switch your style. If you're getting caught coming in, you're supposed to switch. And KSI didn't switch. But if you look at the CompuBox numbers, KSI outlanded Tommy in 3 of the rounds. in power punches, that is. Now, and overall, he landed 8 more power punches than Tommy Fury. But Tommy Fury landed 9 more jabs than KSI. Right. And that's where it becomes tricky. How do you judge? If you get hit more times, power punches by your opponent, significantly more times, maybe 3 more punches, maybe 5 more punches like he did, KSI did, then those rounds should normally go to you, unless you hit him with like 20 jabs maybe. So that's why I was confused with a point taken away from Tommy, even though probably the ref could have took another point. Could have took a point away from KSI as well. I was confused how Tommy was able to get that victory. I didn't see 4 clear rounds won by Tommy, and that's the only way he would have actually won on the cards.
And, you know, me giving credit to KSI is not taking any credit away from Tommy Fury. Congrats to him for winning the fight, because he's also won rounds and he made some adjustments in that fight. I'm just saying that I thought KSI, should have got the nod, and I'm giving him credit because of the lack of experience.
What do you think about what KSI said afterwards? Oh, it's the Fury name. I get it. If I win, destroys boxing or whatever.
No, I don't. Of course not. If KSI beats Tommy Fury, no, boxing is not going to be destroyed. But I do understand.
It does give people a lane to talk about.
It'll give boxing a little scuff right here that eventually will heal, right? Like, when a glove rubs up on your eyeball, it's not going to give boxing a black eye or broken jaw. So I get it, right? I understand.
But check it out.
I understand the thought process.
If Tommy Fury is the guy that vowed to end YouTube boxing, you barely beat Jake. Okay, you beat Jake probably a little bit more convincingly, but you got dropped. You got dropped in that fight.
He's not.
And then you barely beat KSI, and some people even think KSI won. Everybody was screaming. Some of the commentators were screaming that was a robbery. I wouldn't say robbery, close fight, but you didn't beat these guys. And what I'm saying is that, hold on 1 second. Usually when a good fighter fights another fighter and he barely gets by, he's not really happy. When he's supposed to beat a guy, he's not really that happy at the end of the fight. When Triple G fought Derevyanchenko and won, he wasn't like celebrating, oh my God, because it was a close fight. Some thought Derevyanchenko probably won. But when Tommy Fury beats Paul, and when he beats Jake Paul and then he beats KSI, he got tears in his eyes.
Yeah,
that kind of didn't make sense if you're saying that these guys suck.
I think maybe he's an emotional guy. First off, YouTube boxing isn't going anywhere. Or if you want to call it YouTube boxing, influencer boxing, entertainer boxing, it's obviously not going anywhere. 1.3 million pay-per-view sales, and those sales came from those influencers. So it's not going in there. But I do agree with you that if you're going to try to make that statement and saying that you're going to end YouTube boxing, you better obliterate your opponents, right? You better destroy them, and he didn't do that. But nevertheless, he did say that he wants to move on and take professional boxing more serious, meaning eventually become a contender and a champion. But he also threw out there the Paul brothers. Any of them can get it. So
I guess it didn't make sense. He was saying
in a sense, it made sense, because guess what? Jake Paul is a professional boxer. Good point. I like that fight. Logan is more of a wrestler now, but credit to Logan, Barak, because I've been critical with Logan's style in the past, but I was impressed with what he did, especially not being involved in the sport that much, because he's been wrestling and doing other things. But he came out there and looked good, threw the jab, threw a lot of body shots, and really handled Dillon Danis. So I wanted to give Logan Paul for that. We're trying to get him on the show soon. As far as KSI, maybe KSI needs to take a step back and maybe fight like a Slim, Barak, maybe a Saul Poppy. Those guys that have skills, they can be at the same weight class, and maybe as a comeback fight. I like to see that before I see KSI call anybody out like Jake Paul or even a Tommy Fury fight. I'm not clamoring for that rematch against Tommy Fury, but I would love to see KSI back in the ring against one of those other guys.
You see, I can agree, but I don't feel like he needs to take a step back, and not to say that Slim is even a step back, but what I'm saying is that
I didn't mean it like that. Like
he didn't look horrible. Like the fight wasn't a great fight. Nobody landed 40 punches. They landed a total of average of 6.5 punches per round, so it wasn't a great fight either way. So it's not like Tommy Fury made him look bad and KSI should, go back to the drawing board. No.
Yeah, that's not how
he decides to fight Jake Paul, fine. fight Jake Paul, because some people are saying that his fight with Tommy was closer than Jake Paul's fight with Tommy. So Jake Paul is probably happy from that now. Say, okay, now you should be ready to fight me, KSI.
I mean, I'm not against that fight either, Barak. Totally not against KSI versus Jake Paul. I just would like to see him fight one of those guys. Jake is obviously busy on the 15th. There are rumors out there that he's going to be fighting a boxer, because people are complaining about, hey, you're not fighting a real boxer, you're fighting these MMA legends. And there are rumors, I don't know if to be true, but allegedly he's going to fight one of those boxers that all of you boxing fans have been crying about. When is he going to fight a real boxer? When is he going to fight a real boxer? I don't know how you define a real boxer, but I think he's going to give you guys what you've been asking for on the 15th. Who knows who it's going to be? I mean, there are rumors also that it might be an MMA fighter, Barak, but that's going down on the 15th, all right? That's our show for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace and love. Stay safe. We're out of here.